Hello everyone, this is Introduction to the Old Testament. Hello everyone. Last time we spoke about Absalom. For a long time, Absalom, he planned and prepared for a rebellion very meticulously. And he was able to steal the hearts of the people and move them to his side, and he also moved Ahithophel to his side, and he prepared an army in order to rebel against the king. And when the rebellion began, David was not in a circumstance to fight because the power that Absalom had gathered was so great, and so David, he had to run away for the sake of his life. And so he avoided the sword of Absalom and took his people and ran away. And that is the aspect that I want to speak with you about today. As David, he ran away, and there were people who were together with David and those who were not with David. So from time to time, this is what I think, the place where Absalom was standing was not a place that he should be standing, but Absalom was established in that way. So we can see that the Bible clearly distinguishes those who are on David's side and those who are not. When David was the king, everyone followed him. Ahithophel followed him, Absalom followed him, and Shimei, they all followed David, and no one could tell what their hearts were. But when Absalom rebelled against the king and he was established, at that point it was clearly distinguished who was still on David's side and those who were on their own side. And as we live our spiritual lives, whether it's in the church or in our lives, God, he might establish a certain person to see if we have faith in our hearts, or if our hearts will rely upon humanistic methods, our own methods, and God will reveal those things. So David, he was running away, and people who followed David, they were refugees with David. But what was difference between David and others was that David, through this opportunity, completely emptied himself. So as David was, on the run, this is the heart that he must have had. Yes, it is God who appointed me, and it is God who established me. If that is the case, then what do I need to take? What do I need to do? Even if God established me, even if I have nothing, God will call me back. So upon David's order, Abiathar takes the ark of God. Oh, good job. All I have is you guys, and I need to have the ark with me. But as he was running away from Absalom, who knows what would happen, right? Whether he'd be on the run forever, or whether he would have to run to another country. There was no one who knew how long this would have to be that way. So how great would it be if he was together with the ark? Oh yeah, great job. It was a good thing you brought the ark. But this is what David actually says to Zadok and Abiathar in 2 Samuel chapter 15 verse 25. And the king said unto Zadok, carry back the ark of God into the city. If I shall find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. And then verse 26, but if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, behold, here am I, let him do me as seemeth good unto him. So it is clear what the heart of David was. Take the ark back. If it were me, what would I have done? Hey, did you bring the ark? What? You didn't bring the ark? I am on the run right now. And if I get killed, do you think you guys would be all okay? Hurry up and bring the ark. I would have yelled at them. But David said, take back the ark. If God shows favor unto me, and He pours His grace on me, then I can see the ark once again. But if God does not bestow grace upon me, if I die, then there's no way I will be able to see the ark. So rather than me trying to be with the ark, if God allows me to be with the ark, then I will be with it. But if God does not take joy in that, then what's the point of taking the ark? So David knew that if, for example, if I fight in the war, if I run away from Absalom, it was so I would take one more person. I would take one more thing. I would try to take more. But David said to the people, go back to the city. Take back the ark. So we can see that David was emptying himself. Today, because of Absalom, David had to run. Now, there was the fight between Absalom and David. So Absalom represents Satan, and David represents us standing before God. So David is teaching us something. What can we do to win the fight against Satan? People who belong to Satan, Absalom, he would want to take one additional person. He would want to gain the hearts of people even more. He would want to prepare a greater army. He would want to have more people surrounding him. That is the way of Satan. Satan wants to win more. He wants to have more. He wants to obtain more. And that is how he wants to fight the war. But the fight of God is different. David forsook everything and depended on God only. So when you look here, I organized this a bit. It is the Absalom who relies upon everything, his plans, his strategies, the thoughts that he has, and he dwells on that. He put that on the line, including his own life. But David put everything on God. Oh, take back the ark. Hey, Hushai, Abiathar, Zadok, go back. Hushai, go back. David put everything down in front of God, and he put everything on the line in front of God. A person who puts everything on the line in front of God, what do? They put all of their things down, and they depend only on God. So, your methods, your thoughts, your plans, all of these things are put on the line. But David, who puts everything on the line, that battle begins. The great thing is that we have the Bible, right? If you just turn a few pages, we can see the results very easily. So, people who put their lives on their own methods are so insecure. People who put their lives on the line based on their own experiences are unstable. When they rely upon their thoughts, their plans, their methods, if you put your whole life on the line, then those things are insecure and lead to failure. So then, would you not put your life on the line for God? God is almighty. He created the heavens and the earth. He controls everything in this world. Don't you want to put your life in the hands of God? If God leads your life, then your life will be beautiful. And then, more than anything else, if God was leading your life, what can be more beautiful than that? But in order to receive God's guidance, in order for God to lead your life, there is one thing you must do. That is, throw away your things. David, he knew that so well. So David was in a position where he shouldn't throw things away, but he turned everyone back. He put everything down. Hey, take the ark back to Jerusalem. If God is happy with me, I will see this ark again. Otherwise, if God, if meeting the ark again means becoming king again, but if God is not happy, then what's the point of taking the ark with me? David put everything on the line and he walked away. As I read about Absalom, and this is talking about David that was on the run, this is 2 Samuel chapter 15, and the most graceful aspect that was in my heart is verse 31, where it says, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom, and David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. These words were so amazing in my heart. They were so beautiful, right? So David was on the run. When you look here, in verse 30, David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet and wept as he went up, and his head was covered and he went barefoot. And so he was barefoot, he was crying, and he was going up. And so he didn't know what was going to happen. And he was only running away to save his life. And someone said to him, David, O king, the people who are against you, the counselor Ahithophel is with them. This is really big, right? Because Ahithophel, I told you before, his counsel was as if it was coming from God. He was a counselor. And even if Ahithophel was with David, it wouldn't be enough, but he was on the opposite side now, the side of Absalom. So all things in David's heart, everything that he heard was only despair. Now something as big as Absalom rebelling against the king happened. David, probably had the heart to fight with Absalom to take back the throne. But something completely destroyed the heart, and that was the news that Ahithophel was on the side of Absalom. So David continually was hearing the bad news. But this was the big one that crumbled his heart. At that moment, what did David do? He sought the Lord. O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. So David was walking barefoot while crying, and he said, let's pray. And they all gathered together. They didn't, I'm sure they didn't do that, but at that moment, in David's heart, he was saying, oh Lord, Ahithophel's counsel is going to kill me. His counsel is great. But God, please turn his counsel into foolishness. And David, when he reached that dead end, when there was no way, when there was only pain and despair, that is when David sought the Lord. And that when he relied upon God. How amazing is that? Many Christians, as we search for God, if we have our methods remaining, if we have ways available to us, when things are possible, when things are doable, that is when we try to seek God. But when we are in despair, when there's no more way, when it is impossible, we don't rely upon the Lord, and instead we fall into despair. So I'm in the New York church, and not long ago in New Jersey, there's Deacon Yoon, and Deacon Yoon, he comes to the New Jersey church, and he had cancer. And he's been battling this cancer for a long time now. And it was a few months ago I heard that his condition became very serious, almost critical, and he was taken to the hospital. And what I heard was that the deacon said, Pastor, I've really lived a long time. I've lived long enough. All my friends who were battling cancer have already died. People around me all say that it's amazing that you made it this far. And as I heard that, I thought, this is the time that he should be seeking God for His grace. But when it's difficult, he's giving up. And that's the heart that I had. And so, at the time, Pastor Moon, he was at the New Jersey church, and he fought with that deacon. And I also went and had fellowship with him. And this deacon, he gained strength in his heart. And that's what we were able to see. And he was able to he was able to get better. So when does God work? When all of our methods are cut off. That is when He works. But when do we give up? Right before when God is about to work. So when David, he heard the news of Ahithophel, he sought the Lord. Lord, bestow grace upon me. Turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness. I'm sure as he was walking in his heart, he prayed. But this is when God starts to work. The amazing thing is, David was walking, and Ahithophel's counsel has to be destroyed. Who can break down Ahithophel's counsel? Oh God, I need a person who can overturn Ahithophel's counsel, turn it into foolishness. God, please break down his counsel and make it foolishness. He was praying that. And then who appears in front of him? His friend, Hushai. Oh, Hushai, what are you doing here? The king said. And Hushai says, King, wherever you go, I'm going to go with you. And the king said, Hushai, you are old. You know, when you're running from us, you're not going to help us. You're going to, be a burden to us. You're old. It's tiring. You can be burdensome for us. And then he thought, I prayed for a person who can turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness, and this is who appears before me. So Hushai, go to Ahithophel and turn his counsel into foolishness. And so I saw Hushai, and this is my thought. So Hushai, he goes to Absalom, and as he stays with Absalom, he breaks down Ahithophel's counsel. But his counsel really didn't make any sense. Here, see, David, he sent Zadok and Abiathar back and told them to wait in the wilderness until, we'll wait in the wilderness until I hear from you. And David said, I will. So Ahithophel, he knew that David would wait in the plain of the wilderness. So Ahithophel thought, we don't need that many people. Just give me just a few people. We will just go there. We'll attack and we will kill the king. Surprise attack. We'll make it very short. There's no need to kill those people who are following David. We just need to kill David. And everybody will just come to you, king. So let me just kill David. And then Hushai said, that's not good. David is a mighty man. That counsel is not good. He is a soldier. He's a man of battle. If we do that, we can't catch David. So, in order to catch David, we have to gather all the people and have them all attack David as if the dew fell upon the ground, and we have to kill him. And when he gets scared and they run to the city, we will, have a rope around the city and we'll pull that city into the sea. If you think about it, it sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, let's think about it. If you take a rope and you pull a city into the sea, where do you have to pull the city from? For example, if I'm trying to pull it in this direction, you have to pull it from the side that you're in the direction that you want it to go, right? So are they going to stand on top of the river and then pull the city into the water? It doesn't make any sense, right? Or for you're going to go into the water and you're going to start pulling the rope? No, that, even if you think about it for 5 seconds, that counsel does not make any sense. So how did Hushai come up with something like this? I don't know. But, to pull a city into the river, you have to be in the water in order to pull that city into the water, right? But how can you do that? It just doesn't make any sense. But it was God who broke down the counsel of Ahithophel. And he allowed Hushai's counsel to stand. And because God wanted to break down Absalom, in Absalom's heart, he followed the counsel of Hushai. So through that, David was able to run away and rest. So later, Absalom, he gets into a big war against the king, and he dies, and he loses the war, and David once again becomes king. So David, he was facing danger, and he was running away, and he was running away, and he was going down to a point, he was going down the hill. But at what point did everything turn? When did he gain victory? It was verse 30. David didn't have any way, any method. What? David is on his side now? If Ahithophel is on his side, it's so difficult now. But that is when David prayed. He sought God, and he searched for God. O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. So it was from that point that the tide turned towards David. And it was before that point that he continued to falter. He continued to fall. All the victories were leaning towards Absalom. But from that point, David was not disappointed. And it was that point that received strength from the Lord, and the power shifted towards David, and he ran into Hushai. Hushai went to Absalom, and he broke down the counsel of Ahithophel. And Absalom followed the counsel of Hushai, and they went out to war, and they lost to David, and again David became king of the country. So everyone, do you have difficulties in your life? Do you have disappointments in your life? Do you have problems in your life? Then seek the Lord's grace. Oh, this is not going to work. Yes, you might have that heart. And even for me, I had that heart many, many times. Oh, this isn't going to work out. This is impossible. So what does that mean? Does that mean it's impossible for God? No, simply it's just impossible for me. But sometimes we get confused. This isn't going to work. We think God also cannot work. It's not going to work for me. Then I just need to go out to God. Oh, it's impossible. This is not going to work. If we have that kind of heart, we won't go out to God. And this is what we see about ourselves. David, he was in the most difficult situation. He hit rock bottom. But he sought for God. And God heard David at that time. And everything completely turned around. When you face difficulties, don't be disappointed. Instead, go out to God. So that is why in Luke chapter 18 it says, always pray and do not faint. And that is what God says. And He says to pray. Always pray and do not be despaired. So, this time we had a conference in Manhattan, in New York, and Satan put all these thoughts in my head. So last fall we had a conference in Manhattan. Of course, this is probably only my thinking. In all aspects, I tried to do everything. We had the short-term missionaries, hand out flyers. In New York, there's 8 million people. I'm not saying that I did well. I didn't pass out the flyers myself. The short-term missionaries did. The population of 8 million, and we passed out 700,000 flyers. And then we also did advertisements in cars, in subways, and we we drove trucks around with advertisements of the, Manhattan Conference. And I thought to myself, what if God doesn't send enough people? And I was worried. But God sent many people, but it still wasn't enough for me. And, Satan made me think, you can't do it. You tried, but it didn't work. The amazing thing was that when I accept the word of Satan, my heart is covered in despair. And as my heart falls into despair, even though we gather for prayer meetings, the ministers gather and we pray to God, oh God, we are having this conference, please send people. And I pray on the outside, but in my heart, I think it's not going to work. So that is believing in our own hearts. So if it doesn't work for me, does that mean God cannot get it done? If it's impossible for me, is it impossible for God? No. That is not how it is. But Satan continuously makes me believe in my thoughts, makes me think that it won't work, and that it won't work for God. But God changed my heart through Luke chapter 18. Yes, let me pray. Let me not fall into despair. Let me not follow my thoughts in my heart. And so, every morning, we gathered together the ministers and we prayed. And it was through that prayer, one by one, God changed the circumstance. As we prayed, God provided us with the money that we needed. And He opened the brothers and sisters' hearts. And we had a beautiful conference. Are you not in despair right now? Is your heart pressed down by the circumstance and you want to give up? But does it mean that God cannot work? Can God not solve that problem? So, don't be in despair. And say, God can do it. Have faith. David, despite the conditions, he couldn't do anything. He was in despair. But by relying upon God, God changed everything beautifully. And I hope that you will also experience that. I will end the lecture here today.